Howdy folks, I got an ice innovation today. If you use the Camper English mini cooler method to make clear ice, you're gonna definitely want to watch this video. Okay, I'm going to tell you about this project that I'm working on, but I gotta give you a little bit of background first. A few years ago, I made a video about the plexiglass dividers I used for my mini cooler. The goal being to make ice spears, like long, skinny ice cubes that you would put in a Collins glass because it looks cool. Now, I made these dividers using plexiglass, and I had to super glue the pieces together to make it work. It's a little bit clumsy and it's hard to exactly measure to cut the plexiglass. Also, I was super gluing together and the super glue would sometimes fail. The plexiglass would crack eventually and I kept having to repair the dividers. It was not an elegant solution, so I found a better way. So I've come up with a solution involving my 3D printer. It's basically the same concept as the plexiglass dividers, but using the 3D printer I can precisely design the dividers and I can make it all work a lot more elegantly. I can make the ice the exact size I want. It all fits together nicely. It's a way better. So let me just show you how this works. I'm printing 5 pieces out of food safe PLA, 2 of one and 3 of the other, and they sort of fit together into this little grid. Now the goal here is to get the ice out of the mini cooler and not have to make so many cuts. Big problem I have with the ice cooler method is I always get a lot of wonky cuts. The ice doesn't crack straight, and so it's really hard to get sort of a precise ice spear. Hopefully this will eliminate some of those problems. Now this method still involves one sort of critical cut where things can still go horribly wrong, but it's working pretty well, so I thought I would show you where we're at, but I'm gonna keep working on solutions. I think I need to find a better way of cutting the ice. If you have any suggestions on what I'm doing wrong, put it down in the comments. So one quick thing to point out, my 3D printer won't print a piece as long as the mini cooler is. I was thinking I would make the dividers go all the way to the wall of the cooler, but they're about 10 millimeters short or so. Just something I can't get around. It's a little bit annoying, but it actually works out fine. So once the ice comes out of the cooler, I have to use the serrated knife to sort of separate the different sections. You have to do a little saw work right at the dividing line. Then the ice just sort of will pop out. It really doesn't like to stick to this PLA, which is kind of neat. But once you get the end pieces off, you can just sort of separate all the ice. No cutting. The little incidental ice cubes that go around the outside are actually pretty cool. I like those as well, but the main attraction is the spears. So like I said before, once you get to this point, you still have to make that final cut to get it small enough to fit into your Collins glass, and I still have issues getting it to cut straight. Sometimes the spear part would crack in half, and I mean, it's not a perfect solution, so we'll keep working on it. But anyway, still pretty cool. Now off camera, I also made a version of this for big cubes instead of spears. That also works pretty good. Although on the edges it's a little bit irregular, so they still take a little bit of trimming or shaving down to get them to be the shape that you want or to fit in your glass. So here's some cubes from the cube version of this. Some of them come out kind of nice. This one's a little bit small. This is sort of from the middle. This is kind of the nicest one. But then there's also the ones on the 4 corner ones. They get the curved edge. Can you see that? It's got a curved edge from the corner of the cooler. So these ones come out a little bit unusual. Anyway, it's a fun thing to use. It's fun to try out, but it isn't like perfect cubes. And to be honest, instead of cubes, I actually kind of prefer the cylinders and stuff that I've been making with the koozie method, so I probably won't do the cubes very much, but the spears do really come in handy. Now, I know that a lot of people aren't going to have a 3D printer and want to go to this ridiculous amount of trouble. But I do want to show you basically an easier method of getting clear cubes without having to cut them. If you get yourself just a regular silicone ice cube mold, like this one, you cut holes in the bottom so that the water can go through, put that into your mini cooler. You do need to raise it up off the bottom because the clear ice will end up in the top and the bottom will be the cloudy bit. For this, I decided to use another ice cube tray, but you can literally use anything you want. Anything that'll just raise that ice cube tray up off the bottom a little bit. Now this method's pretty neat because the ice is super easy to get out of the tray, but you are limited to the shape of whatever ice cube tray you're using. And by the way, I believe they make sort of long, skinny, spear-shaped silicone molds, so you could definitely do that to get spears as well. Now these did come out with some sort of funny bubbles on the sides of these cubes. I'm not sure where that came from. But if you go back and watch the original plexiglass divider video I made some years ago, one of the points of that video is that if you use hot water, you can reduce the number of bubbles in your ice. I think the reason for this is that the hot water will freeze a lot more slowly. The quicker the ice freezes, the more bubbles you get. The less chance the ice has to push down all the bubbles and impurities. So if you use hot water, you can sort of slow down the ice making process and you should get fewer bubbles. But if you are using 3D printed parts, don't use boiling water. You have to be careful about how hot it is because, of course, the 3D printed parts will warp and melt if it gets too hot. So like for that reason, you shouldn't be putting 3D printed parts in the dishwasher. That's my innovation. But of course, if you don't have a 3D printer, you could just go get some plexiglass and you could put that into your mini cooler and that will save you a couple of cuts. You end up with one clean edge and it's just makes everything a lot easier. Anyway, I just wanted to show off my solution. If you've got any ideas in this direction, let me know down in the comments. Hopefully that was entertaining and or informative. In the meantime, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.